They say revenge is a dish best served cold. They're wrong. Revenge is a dish that should be served slowly, methodically, over the course of 15 years, so that the person who destroyed your life can feel every single moment of their own destruction and never, ever know who's responsible. My name is Diana, and today I finally completed the most important project of my adult life. Let me take you back to where this all started, June 3, 2009. I was 22 years old, fresh out of college with a degree in software engineering from Stanford. I'd been recruited by a promising tech startup in San Francisco called NextCore. The salary wasn't amazing, $65,000 a year, but they offered equity, and the work was exciting. We were developing AI-assisted software for medical diagnostics. Revolutionary stuff that could save lives. I was young, brilliant, and naive. The trifecta of disaster. The company had been founded by 3 people, 2 venture capitalists who provided the money, and a visionary named Richard Ashford who supposedly had the technical expertise and the original idea. Richard was 41, charismatic, and had a track record of successful exits from previous startups. Everyone in Silicon Valley knew his name. I was assigned to the core development team. Within 6 months, I'd become essential to the project. The diagnostic algorithm wasn't working, it had too many false positives and negatives. I spent countless sleepless nights recoding the neural network architecture, redesigning the decision trees, optimizing the pattern recognition. By month 8, I'd essentially rebuilt the entire system from scratch. It worked beautifully. Our accuracy rates shot up to 94%, then 97%, then 99.2%. We were getting interest from hospital systems, insurance companies, even the FDA. NextCore was about to explode. That's when Richard called me into his office. "Diana," he said, flashing that winning smile that had charmed investors out of millions. "We need to talk about your role going forward." I thought I was getting a promotion. Maybe a raise. More equity. Instead, he slid a document across his desk. "This is a separation agreement. We're letting you go." I must have looked like I'd been slapped. "What? Why?" "The company is moving in a different direction. Your skill set is no longer aligned with our needs." He spoke in that corporate monotone that means nothing and everything. "You'll receive 2 weeks severance. We're being quite generous, actually. But I built the core algorithm. I'm the reason the product works." His expression didn't change. "According to your employment contract, all work product created during your tenure belongs to NextCore. You were compensated for your contributions through your salary." "Richard, this is insane. You can't just. Security will escort you out. You have 30 minutes to collect your personal belongings." "I'm sorry it didn't work out, Diana." I was in shock. I packed my few personal items into a cardboard box while a security guard watched. My colleagues avoided eye contact. I found out later that Richard had told everyone I'd been stealing code and selling company secrets. A complete fabrication, but effective. No one wanted to be associated with me. I tried to fight it. I consulted with 3 different employment lawyers. They all said the same thing: my contract was airtight. I'd signed away rights to anything I created. Unless I could prove wrongful termination or discrimination, I had no case. And Richard had been careful. He'd documented performance issues that didn't exist, created a paper trail that made me look incompetent. 2 months after I was fired, NextCore was acquired by a major medical technology corporation for $340 million. Richard Ashford personally walked away with $127 million. The technology I'd built, the algorithm I'd poured my soul into, it made him a multimillionaire while I was sleeping on my friend's couch and applying for unemployment benefits. But that wasn't even the worst part. The worst part came when I tried to get another job. Richard had connections everywhere in Silicon Valley. Everywhere I applied, I'd get initial interest, then suddenly nothing. I found out through a former colleague that Richard was making calls, telling people I was difficult to work with, that I'd tried to steal intellectual property, that I was litigious and would sue at the first opportunity. He'd blacklisted me. By 2010, I was broke, depressed, and working as a barista. My Stanford degree was worthless. My dreams were dead. And Richard Ashford was on the cover of Forbes, being celebrated as a genius innovator. That's when I decided. I was going to destroy him. Not quickly. Not obviously. I was going to dismantle his life piece by piece, so slowly that he'd never see it coming, never know who was responsible. I was going to take everything from him the way he'd taken everything from me. And I was going to enjoy every second of it. Phase 1 took 3 years of preparation. First, I had to rebuild myself. I took online courses using a fake name, created a new professional identity. I moved to Austin, Texas, where I could start fresh. I worked terrible jobs during the day and coded at night, building up a portfolio under my new identity, Michelle Brennan. By 2013, Michelle Brennan had an impressive resume. She'd contributed to several open source projects, had glowing recommendations from people I'd helped online, all real work, no fabrications. I wasn't Richard. I got hired at a mid-sized tech company in Austin, then moved to a better one in Seattle. While I was rebuilding Michelle Brennan's career, I was studying Richard Ashford. I learned everything about him. His new company. His investments. His marriage to Catherine, a former model. His 2 kids, James and Sophie. His house in Atherton. His vacation home in Lake Tahoe. His habits, his weaknesses, his secrets. Because everyone has secrets. You just have to know where to look. Richard had a gambling problem. Not a huge one. He could afford his losses, but he enjoyed private poker games with other tech executives. High stakes, sometimes $50,000 or $100,000 per hand. He thought he was good. He wasn't. He also had a wandering eye. His marriage to Catherine looked perfect on social media, but Richard had a string of affairs. He was careful, but not careful enough. I documented 3 different women he was seeing between 2013 and 2015. In 2015, I launched Phase 2. I'd saved up $50,000 every penny I could spare over 5 years. I used it to create a company, Brennan Solutions LLC. On paper, it was a consulting firm offering software development and IT services. In reality, it was a vehicle for getting close to Richard's world. I started small. One of Richard's portfolio companies needed help with a cybersecurity audit. Michelle Brennan's firm submitted a bid not the lowest, but competitive, with an impressive proposal. We got the contract. I did excellent work. Professional, thorough, ahead of schedule. I built a reputation. More of Richard's companies started hiring Brennan Solutions for various projects. I was getting inside access to his business empire, learning how everything connected, where the vulnerabilities were. Richard and I even met a few times. He had no idea who I was. I'd changed my appearance, different hair color, lost 30 pounds, wore colored contacts. And why would he remember me? I'd been a nobody to him, barely worth the effort of destroying. But I remembered him. In 2016, I made my first move. One of Richard's investments was a company called BrightPath, a financial technology startup. I'd done consulting work for them and discovered something interesting: their security was terrible. More importantly, their CEO had been cooking the books, inflating user numbers to attract more venture capital funding. I anonymously tipped off the SEC. The investigation took 18 months. When it concluded, BrightPath's CEO was indicted for fraud. The company collapsed. Richard lost his entire $8 million investment. It barely made the news, just another failed startup, another case of founder fraud. Richard never connected it to me because why would he? He didn't even know Diana existed anymore. And Michelle Brennan had moved on to other clients by then. In 2017, I targeted his marriage. Remember those affairs I'd documented? I'd kept everything: photos, emails I'd acquired through various means I won't detail, hotel receipts, phone records. I created a beautiful, anonymous package and sent it to Catherine. To her credit, Catherine didn't just leave immediately. She confronted Richard. He denied everything at first, then admitted to one affair but insisted it was over and he'd changed. Catherine wanted to believe him. They went to marriage counseling. So 6 months later, I sent her evidence of 2 more affairs, including one that was currently ongoing. Catherine filed for divorce in January 2018. California is a community property state. She got half of everything. Richard's net worth dropped by about $60 million overnight. He was still rich, of course. Still successful. But I could see the strain starting to show in his public appearances. He looked tired. Older. Good. Phase 3 began in 2018 and was the most complex. Richard had started a new company, Ashford Ventures, which was essentially a venture capital firm investing in AI and machine learning startups. He was using his reputation and his remaining fortune to build a new empire. I decided to infiltrate it. Michelle Brennan had been building her reputation for years. By 2018, she was a respected name in tech circles, not famous, but known among people who mattered. When Ashford Ventures posted a position for a chief technology officer to evaluate potential investments, Michelle applied. I didn't get the job. Richard hired someone with more traditional VC experience. But I got on his radar. Over the next year, I made sure we kept crossing paths at conferences, industry events, networking mixers. I positioned myself as an expert, someone whose opinion mattered. In early 2019, one of Ashford Ventures' portfolio companies needed a temporary CTO while they searched for a permanent replacement. Richard asked if I'd be interested in a 6-month contract. I said yes. From the inside, I had access to everything. Richard's communication with his portfolio companies, his investment strategies, his due diligence processes, his upcoming deals. And that's when I found the leverage I needed. Richard was about to make the biggest investment of his career, $45 million into a company called Nexus AI, which was developing autonomous vehicle technology. He'd been courting them for a year. The deal was nearly closed. I spent 3 months quietly sabotaging it. It wasn't anything illegal. I didn't hack anything or steal anything. I simply asked questions during due diligence that revealed problems. I pointed out technical limitations in Nexus AI's approach that the founders couldn't adequately answer. I introduced Richard to experts who raised concerns about the viability of their timeline. I planted seeds of doubt. Richard started getting cold feet. He asked for better terms, more control. Nexus AI's founders were offended. They'd had other offers anyway. In June 2019, they announced they'd accepted funding from a different VC firm. Richard was furious. He'd missed out on what turned out to be a unicorn. Nexus AI was valued at over $1 billion within 2 years. But I wasn't done with Ashford Ventures. Over the next 2 years, I systematically undermined his portfolio. Nothing obvious. Nothing traceable to me. I'd identify problems in his investments and quietly let them fester. I'd introduce his companies to helpful contacts who turned out to be disasters. I'd provide technical advice that was just slightly off, leading to delays and cost overruns. Company by company, his investments started underperforming. Some failed outright. Richard's reputation as a savvy investor began to crack. By 2021, Ashford Ventures was struggling. He'd had 3 major failures in a row. Limited partners were pulling their money. He was being quietly edged out of the elite circles he'd once dominated. In 2022, I targeted his children. This sounds cruel, and maybe it is. But I didn't hurt them. I just made sure Richard couldn't use them for his image rehabilitation. James, his son, was at Harvard Business School. Richard loved to brag about this. I discovered that James had submitted a business plan competition entry that was largely plagiarized from a European startup's pitch deck. I anonymously alerted the competition organizers. James was disqualified and faced academic discipline. The story made it to several business blogs. Richard's golden boy wasn't so golden anymore. Sophie, his daughter, was an Instagram influencer with about 200,000 followers. She promoted wellness products and lifestyle brands. I discovered she was being paid to promote supplements that made unverified health claims. One anonymous tip to the FTC later, and Sophie was being investigated for violating endorsement guidelines. Her sponsors dropped her. Her follower count plummeted when people realized her authentic lifestyle was largely manufactured. Again, Richard's family humiliation made minor headlines. Another chip in his carefully crafted image. In 2023, I went for his crown jewel, his legacy. Remember NextCore, the company where this all started? The medical diagnostic AI I'd built had become an industry standard, licensed by hospitals worldwide. Richard was still celebrated as its creator. He gave TED Talks about innovation. He'd written a book about entrepreneurship. I decided it was time for the truth to come out. I'd kept everything from my time at NextCore. Every line of code I'd written, every email, every document. I'd backed it all up before they'd escorted me out. For years, I'd held onto it, waiting for the right moment. I created a blog post under a pseudonym. In meticulous detail, I outlined how Richard Ashford had stolen credit for work he didn't do. I provided code samples showing that the core algorithm had been developed by a team member he'd fired. I showed email threads where Richard had asked me technical questions that proved he didn't understand the technology he claimed to have invented. I didn't identify myself. This wasn't about me getting credit that ship had sailed 15 years ago. This was about destroying Richard's reputation. I posted it on Medium and several tech forums. Then I made sure it got in front of the right people, journalists who'd covered Nextcore's original success, former employees who'd been there, investors who'd funded Richard's subsequent ventures. The story exploded. Other former Nextcore employees came forward with similar stories. A pattern emerged of Richard taking credit for others' work, pushing out talented people who made him look bad, building his fortune on stolen ideas. The tech press had a field day. The man who stole innovation, Richard Ashford's house of cards. Silicon Valley's biggest fraud. Headlines like that, everywhere. His book sales tanked. His speaking engagements were cancelled. Companies he advised quietly distanced themselves. Richard released a statement denying everything, threatening lawsuits. But the evidence was too strong. And the more he fought, the worse it looked. That was 18 months ago. Since then, I've watched Richard Ashford's complete collapse. Ashford Ventures shut down in December 2023. He couldn't raise a new fund. His remaining portfolio companies were sold off at losses. His personal brand was destroyed. He was uninvited from the boards he'd served on. The industry he'd once dominated wanted nothing to do with him. His net worth, which had peaked at around $180 million, was now estimated at maybe $15 million, still wealthy by normal standards, but a shadow of what he'd had. Most of it was tied up in his house and illiquid investments. But I saved the final move for today. Last week, I received a call from a headhunter. A major medical technology company was looking for a chief technology officer. The compensation package was extraordinary, $850,000 salary, plus equity that could be worth tens of millions if the company went public. The company? The corporation that had acquired Nextcore back in 2009. They'd followed my work as Michelle Brennan. They were impressed. They wanted me to lead their next generation of diagnostic AI. I took the meeting. They made the offer. This morning, I signed the contract. I'm now the CTO of the company that owns the technology I built 15 years ago. The technology that made Richard Ashford rich. I'll be leading its development, getting full credit, and earning more money than I ever dreamed of. And this afternoon, I did something I've been planning for months. I sent Richard Ashford an email from my Diana account, the original one I'd abandoned years ago. The subject line was simple, "Remember me." The body of the email was longer. Dear Richard. You probably don't remember me. In June 2009, you fired me from Nextcore and took credit for the work I'd done. You blacklisted me from the industry. You destroyed my career when it was just beginning. I want you to know that I've spent the last 15 years systematically dismantling your life. Every business failure, every personal humiliation, every loss you've suffered since 2015, I was behind it. Not all of it, of course. Some of your failures were your own doing. But the major ones? That was me. I destroyed your marriage. I ruined your investments. I sabotaged your portfolio companies. I exposed your fraud. I made sure your children's scandals became public. I engineered your fall from grace. And today, I accepted a position as CTO of the company that acquired Nextcore. I'll be earning more money than you ever paid me, leading development of the technology you stole from me, and finally getting the recognition I deserved 15 years ago. You took 1 year of my life. I took 15 years of yours. I'd say we're even, but we're not. You're ruined. Your reputation is destroyed. Your fortune is depleted. Your legacy is a fraud. And you'll spend the rest of your life knowing that someone you didn't even remember, someone you considered too insignificant to matter, orchestrated your complete destruction. I want you to know it was me. I want you to understand that every time you've wondered why things kept going wrong, why your luck had run out, it wasn't luck. It was me. It was always me. I win. Diana. I hit send at 3:47 p.m. At 4:23 p.m., my phone rang. Unknown number. I answered. You psychotic bitch. Richard's voice was shaking with rage. I'll sue you for everything you've done. I'll destroy you. You'll do nothing, I said calmly. Everything I did was legal. I never hacked anything, never stole anything, never broke any laws. I simply outmaneuvered you at every turn. I was smarter, more patient, and more ruthless than you ever were. You can't prove any of this. Your email is just unhinged rambling. You sound insane. I don't need to prove it. You know it's true. That's enough for me. There was a long silence. When he spoke again, his voice was different. Smaller. Why? It was just business. I didn't even. You didn't even remember me, I finished. I know. That's what made it so easy. You never saw me coming because you never bothered to see me at all. I hung up. I'm writing this now, sitting in my new apartment in San Francisco, a beautiful place overlooking the bay that I can actually afford now. Tomorrow, I start my new job. I'll be working with some of the smartest people in the industry, developing technology that will save lives. Everything I wanted 15 years ago, I have now. And Richard Ashford has nothing but the knowledge that the person he casually destroyed came back and returned the favor 100-fold. Do I feel guilty? Sometimes. What I did was cold, calculated, and consumed 15 years of my life. I could have spent that time building something new instead of destroying someone old. But then I think about that day in June 2009. I think about how casually Richard ruined my life, how little I mattered to him, how easily he lied about me and stole from me. I think about the years I spent broke and hopeless while he got rich off my work. And I don't feel guilty anymore. People say revenge doesn't bring satisfaction, that it's a hollow victory. Those people have never had revenge done properly. I feel spectacular. Richard Ashford destroyed me without a second thought. I destroyed him with 15 years of careful planning and enjoyed every minute of it. They say living well is the best revenge. I disagree. Living well while systematically destroying the person who wronged you, that's the best revenge. And now, if you'll excuse me, I have a bottle of very expensive champagne chilling in my refrigerator and a career to resurrect. To Diana. To Michelle. To whoever I am now, someone who learned that patience, intelligence, and dedication can accomplish anything. Even perfect revenge.